Welcome to another episode of the Silman Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Batista. I'm super excited. Today's guest is one of my old friends, Ryne Morrison. Man, we go way back to the J-Rob days, and it's been super awesome to kind of see him go from being an assistant at Adrian's college to taking over a program that was out for like 40 years. I think 38. I don't know why I said 40 when I know it was 38. 38-year hiatus. St. John Fisher, and we're able to get an All-American and basically just rebuild the program from scratch, like literally with a new wrestling room. Had to recruit for a year and bring in guys that could come in and start right away, and had been there for the last few years. And now he's taken this big move to Williams College in Western Massachusetts. And man, I'm just excited to have him on and to share this episode with you guys. It's going to be great. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify and all the major social media platforms. If you haven't yet, we've been cooking some articles up on our website on simplemanwrestling.com. And I'm going to give another shout out to the Coyote Club. That Coyote Club does so much to support local wrestling in Bakersfield and the greater Kern County area. If you are interested in supporting the Coyote Club, I'm going to put their Venmo and their Zelle in the link in our description. So please consider making a donation. They do a lot to support local wrestling in Bakersfield. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Golf?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
How'd you
dude.
golf the other?
So the guy, there was a guy that was playing ahead of me that I guess was like a former D2 basketball player, but like he like came up to me at, like right before we were on the last hole, and he's like, "How long you been playing?" I'm like, "Not that long, dude." And he's just like, "Yeah, I can tell." And I go, "Also tell you were a former athlete," because like, dude, I was getting heated. I initially played with those guys in the first hole, and I was like 5 over par. Like I
Okay.
just could not chip it in, and I was like, "You guys just play ahead." And once they left, I was able to kind of like focus a little bit. But I'm pretty bad. Do you play?
Yeah, I play a lot.
It's fun
It's the best. I think it's the closest to wrestling I've gotten as an adult.
because it's
Um,
it's it's very skill intensive, but it's not as hard on your body, which like I really enjoy.
yeah, my motivation was like obviously Caitlin, she was a like couple time All-American field hockey player in college.
Yeah,
So when we first started, she was way better than me.
yeah.
And like we're a competitive household, so there was a lot of smack talk and a lot of practice later and have gotten all right.
I feel like the field hockey stuff, like the stick. I feel like she's probably really good at like chipping, like getting a little
She
bit of loft,
hits
like all with her
bombs.
irons.
Like hits bombs, like just drive her, like swing as hard as she can.
That's fun though,
Uh,
man. What?
yeah.
So how long you been playing that? Like
We
since
started
you
in
kind of got
COVID.
together? Okay.
COVID was really the big one because we were stuck in Michigan and it was like, can get outside, like, let's give it a shot. Bought some like $50 Facebook marketplace clubs and have been going ever since.
Dude, so let's kind of go back for a second because when we first met in J-Rob, like, dude, that was the most fun time ever. And I think you were at Adrian at the time, right? And then you
Yeah.
applied for the St. John Fisher job during
Mhm.
camp.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, one, like I was really fortunate. I worked for 5 years at the J-Rob camps. Met my wife at the J-Rob camps as an athletic trainer, so I owe a lot to them. And yeah, I had the opportunity to, every summer just kind of travel, and it was a really cool place as you're trying to figure out your coaching philosophy, what you're doing. Like before you got a head coaching job, you had 25 counselors that were all, pretty successful college wrestlers. So there was a
Yeah.
lot to learn from kind of a technical standpoint. And then obviously Jay was just the wizard and kind of an open door to whatever, kind of coaching philosophy stuff you had. So it was a really cool time, obviously. And then coaching at Adrian, had the opportunity to coach there, was there for 4 years. And then obviously took over the program at St. John Fisher. It was a startup program. So it was from the ground up. It was definitely one of the toughest, but probably one of the most rewarding experiences the last 5 years, to go from no wrestling room, no coaching staff, no kids, and then to build things up over the last 5 years. That was really special.
And they didn't have a program for like 40 years or something like that. I was reading that.
Yeah.
That's kind of nuts. So what do you do? Because like you go in there and it's like you probably don't really have any alumni really to kind of like build something with. So you're kind of just literally just going in kind of dry.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, I think, like looking back, right? Like as a young coach, you're like, I got this. But I think obviously it just started with, you know, the vision, the values. You kind of have a year of recruiting, and then obviously there's a lot of logistics of the wrestling room and schedule and all those things. But I think a lot of it just came down to, what do you want the culture of this team to be like? What does, an ideal practice, lineup, just kind of what that day to day looks like. And I think just starting small and then just kind of doing the little things really well from there. So we got our first recruiting class in, they finished the wrestling room, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I'm really grateful. That was this class that just graduated, and that was just an unbelievable group of people. They were bought in from day one on just kind of the values and the expectations. Um, so I think having that, I think, was a big part of the success, right? Was just kind of understanding, like, how do you want this program to kind of function? What do you want things to look like? And just making sure you're really diligent from a culture standpoint.
I like what you said, starting with culture, because I think it's like you can go and you can recruit a bunch of really talented guys, but if they're not the right people from like a value standpoint, it's going to be hard to build because that's your culture group's your foundation.
Yeah, it was, you knew right away that, this first class, it is not about how many matches we win. Like, if you get somebody to the national tournament, it was all about just finding the right people. And then I think once you had that piece, because if you mess that up in year one, you're going to be chasing that for the next decade.
Yeah.
Right. So, just brought in, just like I said, just an unbelievable group of people. And I think having that culture piece in place, it allowed, the next recruiting class, and it, your momentum starts to build once you kind of have those things in place. And I think when you find people that are very motivated and good people to be around and they love the sport and they want to get better, that's contagious, right? So I think it built every class from there.
So when these guys come in, you guys technically didn't have the wrestling room built yet, or was it being built during the first year?
They finished it like in August. So like for
Oh,
that
okay.
whole recruiting stretch was like, this is what it's gonna be, but like we don't have it done yet. So yeah, it was bare bones. It was just, culture, values, expectations. Here's what, the space is gonna look like, but there weren't mats down or anything like that. And yeah, that group came in September, and we were full steam ahead.
Let me get like another timeline in my brain. So we were at the J Rob camp. You apply for it. Did
Mhm.
you do the interview over Zoom and was it in one of the dorms?
No, I did not do it in the dorms. Thankfully, I was done with camp, and the process kind of started. And then I remember it was in like I applied during camp, and then it was in September was when they started doing the interviews and all that stuff. And I actually, it was early October. I remember it was first week of October is when I officially like took the job and started. So we were even behind on the normal recruiting cycle. So yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind from there.
So you had maybe about 11 months, maybe to kind of just talk to some recruits and take some kids
Mhm.
on visits. And then that following year was the first year, like, all right, now we can compete. So like you're
Yeah.
bringing kids out, like you just show them the bookstore and a couple of classrooms. And like, I mean, did you have an office? Like, did you have all that?
Yeah, yeah, I had an office. Like that was great. Like could sit and talk in the office. We obviously had the space so could show them the wrestling room. And then obviously, the academic piece was huge. Fisher's was a great school, so you knew you were looking for some higher academic kids. So that side of things really took care of itself. And I think I really leaned on the fact that at Fisher they had a really strong athletic department. I think my first year they won that recruiting year, I think they won 15 conference titles of like 24 sports. So it was, you know, kind of the idea of, listen, like I have faith that I can do this and like this is what our expectations are, but also, we're really successful here, right? So wrestling's going to fall in line or there's going to be a new head coach at some point, right? Like that's just kind of the expectations from a department standpoint. So yeah, I was really just, we're really lucky. We brought in that first group of freshmen and yeah, it's not really traditional. You're starting 10 freshmen in a, college duel. But that was our first season and had a winning record, scraped through, and things really, really started to build.
That's got to be a good, almost maybe like an edge in a lot of ways for recruiting because it's like, hey, like you don't have to sit. Like you can come in and you could start right away.
Yeah, it was we're going. Like you're the guy. And some of those weights we were pretty deep and pretty competitive, some not so much. And then every year the room got more exponentially more competitive every year.
What were some things that you felt like, okay, now stepping into a head coaching role, obviously being in a new environment, it's going to take some, there's going to be some learning curve stuff, but going from like assistant to head coach, obviously you have in your mind, like, okay, these are all the values. Like, this is how we're going to run practices. Like, this is going to be our style. Like, this is how we're going to do things. All right. And then the season starts. And then what were some things that maybe were like, all right, maybe this isn't exactly what I planned for. Like, how do I make the adjustments?
Yeah, there were definitely a couple things. I think I was very fortunate when I was at Adrian. Bill Schindel was just an awesome mentor. And he basically throughout each season, he kind of weaved in, a different kind of role and responsibility, right? So at that point, I'd pretty much done every aspect of being a head coach, to varying degrees. I think the art is really weaving it all together, right?
Yeah.
That's what no one prepares you for. And I think just from, I was 28 years old as a head coach. So I think just the level of organization is just critical. And I think just being able to ask for help, I think was really important. Surrounding yourself with a staff that balances you, because everyone has strengths and weaknesses. So I was
Yeah.
really lucky to build an awesome staff. And then I think from there, I think one of the things that, when you talk about culture, when you talk about values, anything, I think just over communicating. I think I really, now looking back, I think you understand how important it is to, talk about things that are really important to you day in and day out, right? And even if it sounds redundant, one of the things that I thought was really cool was like we had our values, we had our culture, we had all those things kind of ironed out the first year. And I remember we quizzed kids on our team at the end of the year. And the answers were not as good as we thought they were going to be, right? So you're like, all right, like now, like we really have to, pound this message home as much and as frequently as we can. And so it makes sure that it's not really about the message, it's about how many messengers you got. So then it gets to the point, 4 or 5 years in, where now you have, upperclassmen that know this like the back of their hand, and they're advocating for you too. It's not just me in the practice room.
Because I think I saw this thing and it was like trying to get early adopters. It's like you're going to get early adopters, but to get like market penetration on an idea, it's going to take like a little bit, like people need to understand why. And I think
Yeah.
for a lot of those kids that you're recruiting, it's like maybe they understand, okay, this is like the what, but you got to give them time to figure out like, okay, this is the real life context. And it's hard, like being 18 and 19 and just coming in and be like, all right, like, integrity and like, having like a value system. And it's like some of those kids probably have that stuff, but it's like just getting it ingrained, I think, not just, in their habits, but in their soul, man. Like that takes some time. But when you think about maybe some of those kids that were your early adopters, people that were like, yeah, like let's do this, like who maybe kind of stands out, and why do you think maybe they were able to kind of receive that message a little bit sooner than others?
Um, I think there were a couple of kids in that now graduating class at Fisher that I think were so important. Our 133 pounder Dark Bernardino, that kid's going to be a CEO one day. He's just unbelievable. 4.0. He was a triple major in data analytics, economics, computer science, like just, and
This
was
guy's gonna take over the world, is what you're saying.
yeah, he was a couple time region, 3-time region placer for us, 4-time Scholar All American. So just lived things the right way, and I think he really gravitated to the message early. And I think you identify leaders in the program and then do everything you can to facilitate it. I think like anything, some people have a natural ability to lead, or people listen when they say things, but I think also just trying to foster that. As much as you can. So I really look at him. He was just unbelievable in year one. And I think just pulled a lot of people in a positive direction with him. And then was our captain from the first day of practice pretty much until he graduated this year. So I think he was a big part of it.
Dude, those are special kids, and like I wish like we had kids on our team every year that was like that. And maybe you do. Maybe you've been lucky where it's like every year another kid comes in, but dude, that's hard. That's hard to replicate. But that role is so important.
Yeah, and I think I like one of the things that I really liked is we wound up making, like we just called it our leadership group. And sometimes it's hard for everybody to come and have a conversation with coaches about how they're doing or how they're feeling. It's not, especially if you're younger, it's not always the easiest thing to do. Um, but I think we would always have, our captains, and then, some people that you feel are going to be future leaders would invite onto those kind of meetings. So you tried to be in a position where you weren't a kid like that graduates and you have nobody. You're trying to facilitate that as much as you can with the kids that you see potential in. So I think that was really integral too, because I think it was really important that Derek, he understood that I also had to give. a little bit. Like it can't just be me being the sole person, right? Like none of us are above the program. So, eventually the program's going to move on without you. So, giving up some of those roles and responsibilities to train the next person, I give him a lot of credit because that's definitely not always the easiest thing to do.
No, it's hard. I mean, I think especially too, like this is for them, obviously it's important because it's their career and it's their collegiate experience. Dude, this is your job, man. Like this is your livelihood. And obviously it's more than that. But
Yeah.
like, if you're not performing, it's not like the kid gets fired. It's like you get fired. So it's like it's maybe a risk to give that up, but also at the same time, like when you give kids ownership and they actually take advantage of that opportunity and succeed, it just makes your program so much better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's, ultimately I think you can only, as the head coach, you can only lead a group so far, right? I'm with them 3 hours, 4 hours a day. There's another 20 hours there that determine really how we're going to do in our dual meet 3 months
Yeah.
from now, right? So, I think when it comes from the student athletes and they believe it and you have solid leadership within the program, I think that's when teams make really big jumps.
I think for high school it's almost a little bit easier sometimes because like with that timeline that you said where it's like okay from 3 to 5:30 or 3:30 to 5 it's like okay we're together and I can be on you and maybe we'll have a lifting time outside of that and some study hall but outside of that, that's going to be what make and breaks you. Like, are you getting the right sleep? Are you getting the right nutrition? Are you hanging out with the right people? And that's why, like, okay, I can build that relationship with our parents to where at least they kind of understand like what we're trying to do, and they can hopefully hold their kids accountable. You don't got no parents there, man. That's just
No,
that's
it's
just
just
the
them.
kids,
No, it's just them. And that's where, like, I think, again, I just talked about that first group. I think that's why they were so important, was even, guys that weren't in the starting lineup for 4 years were just fully bought in and just really, you know, help deliver that message. And I think in the recruiting side of things, it's so important when bring, a potential student athlete on campus and you have, full confidence in however many guys on your team that they can, kind of hammer home the message that you just spent time talking about in the office. Um, I think that starts to grow and people start to really buy into, you know, that kind of philosophy. They want to be a part of it once they kind of see it.
Yeah, and I think again, it goes back to when you have everybody kind of rocking on the same page. Like now they're gonna have a lot more success, but it's so much more fun. Like when the kids are winning and like they're having fun and they're good people and you're having fun, like it's it's just so much fun, dude. And when it's not, it's like I never really got this, but I've told like kids on our team the last couple of years, and I think they kind of bought into it. It's like, being really process driven is important but also like help each other, like help build each other up. Because when you're winning by yourself, like that's cool. But when the whole squad's crushing it and they're having a good time and you're on the road trips and everybody comes home like pretty much happy with their performance, it's like, yeah, this is fun. This is what we want to keep doing.
Especially like there's some, I can send you some clips. There's like, if you looked at our bench at Fisher, it's just a lot of kids that loved being there. It was probably one of the most electric benches in in Division 3, right? Just a bunch of kids jumping up and down and having a great time and supporting each other. And I just think that makes it really cool to be a part of it, right? And as a coach, I think that's what makes this fun, is the relationships. And obviously wrestling is kind of the vehicle, but it's just really cool being a part of that kind of experience.
Was that so? What happens on the bench? Because I think I saw a clip. You might have posted it maybe on Instagram or something.
Mhm.
But like when you have the kids jumping up and down and they're getting fired up because like a big moment happens out on the mat. Is that something that's like kind of happening organic with the kids, or is that something like you're like, hey, like we need to get fired up for our guys?
No, that's organic. That's just kind of who they are. And, obviously you talk about like being, right, like, hey, we want to be excited for each other. And like, I remember there was like a Bono clip back in the day where you're talking about like, I love when people are passionate. Like, obviously you want to be respectful and within kind of the boundaries of sportsmanship. But, when people are passionate and they're excited, that's awesome, right? So just kind of letting them be them. That was kind of just their personality. So don't fight it. Just let it kind of happen. And that's really what it was. We did have to wind up. We had to make a rule. Luckily in our gym, and we always found a spot. when we were on the road. We'd put when guys weren't wrestling, we'd get them out of the gym and couple matches before and just kind of sit and decompress, do your thing, get ready to wrestle. Because if you have three of those with people going nuts, like, and you let that kind of take away some of your energy, like third period is going to be tough. So we actually had to make that adjustment as a staff. It wound up working out pretty well.
That is a good adjustment because I think a lot of kids, I don't want to say kids, but a lot of people like they get so caught up in having those relationships with the guys that are competing. It's like, dude, you can't wrestle for them. And that was something I think I learned pretty on as a coach. It's like you can't wrestle for the kids, like that you just have to like just try to prepare them as best you can and let them do their thing. But yeah, watching your teammates wrestle, it's like, hey, I know you love your guy right now. I know he's out there, but like you got to focus on you. You're about to wrestle. Like go in the corner, like breathe, relax. Don't watch that match. You can, watch the replay. Everybody's recording now, anyways. It's like you can
Oh
watch the
yeah.
replay in a second, but you got to do your part.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what you remember Jay always talked about is right. Like everyone only has so many units of energy. If you're blowing, even if it's 2%, 1% of your energy getting excited for somebody else, that's points you're leaving on the table when you get out there.
Dude, Jay has so many like golden nuggets. Like I was trying to think of a couple because I'm trying to think of like kind of what stood out to me. But like when you think about some other stuff, maybe that he's kind of rubbed off on you, like maybe it's what like one or two things that comes to mind.
I think one of the I still have the notebook. I still look at it every once in
Yep.
a while. I think, you know, at one of the first meetings we had, I had never coached a day of college wrestling yet. I was just hired as a first year grad assistant. And I remember he talked about just like understanding like what are your values, what is really important to you, and every decision you make comes through that lens. Um, and I think that's really just helped me out a lot because sometimes I think it's easy as a coach, especially like starting a program that, this kid might not fit the culture, but he's really good. And, right? Like you want to win. So maybe you're like, do I take a chance on him? Do I try to, cut corners in this way to try to get a win? But it was like, no, the lens is, the lens. This is what I'm looking through everything through. And I think that was really the biggest thing. And then there's always just I think for Jay, it was just the level of detail that he approached everything. I think really was what stood out to me. How everything was intentional, and um, you know how every little piece of what we were doing, ultimately affected the end result, which was a great experience for those kids at camp.
And I think the reason he's so detail oriented with a lot of things is I think back in when the camp really first started, or its first iteration was at Iowa,
Yeah.
and I think a kid like died or almost died or something because of dehydration. So that's like became one of the main things at the camp is like
Mhm.
you got to be hydrated. Like you got to make sure you're keeping your weight up. Like I think a lot of that stuff. I think when I first interacted with him, I was like, man, this guy's the genius. He's the master,
Yeah.
of a lot of different areas. But that has only came because he's made a bunch of mistakes over 40 plus years of coaching, which I think it kind of allows me to give myself a little bit of grace sometimes.
Oh, 100%. And I think ultimately, I think just that level of just yeah, like he made a ton of mistakes. He started a bunch of businesses. He was just a fascinating human being to talk to, and yeah, left obviously a really lasting impact on me and countless other people. So it's just yeah, I think a lot of that experience is I've leaned on that as a coach, right? And it's been super beneficial.
When you talk about like maybe having an impact on somebody, when you think about the relationships that you kind of built at Fisher, and now it's like you kind of were maybe going through the thought process of leaving, or you see this other opportunity. That's the hardest part, man, is leaving the people. And I hope they understand like why. It's not because of them, but it's kind of like it's kind of like when your parents get divorced, you think it's your fault, but it's not. You know.
It that was, and I wish school had just ended when I accepted the job. So I unfortunately I had to do it over Zoom, and that was horrible. Like I just, it would have been way more emotional looking all of them in the eyes, right? As Zoom, you only get like six, seven at a clip. So, but it was really hard because that's a group of kids that you love and you care about, and they've given you everything that they've had. And and I told him too, I think one of the sad parts of coaching is, you know, you guys are the ones that buy in and do all the work and win all the matches. Like I've scored 0 points for St. John Fisher Wrestling, right? Um, but you guys are the reason that, someone deems that you're a great coach. And, we want you to take this opportunity. And I think the biggest thing was that they understood was, how important my wife is to me and our family. And I think as a college coach, you give up a lot of sacrifices, and that's just understood, right? Like I'm going to miss things just with this job and how much of a priority they are. Um, but my wife's obviously from Western Massachusetts, so the opportunity to move her back closer to family after following me around for almost a decade, I, you know, couldn't think of a better gift for her than that, to be able to be around her family, hopefully start a family soon and be able to raise our family. With our family is a big part of those kids' lives. And I think they really understood that. And it was a little overwhelming, right? How appreciative you are, because it was definitely a daunting conversation to have.
Yeah, and I think it seemed like it was good timing too. I mean, you guys have had some good years, and I want to say it was last year you had your first NCAA qualifier, right? And that's pretty cool. Was it
Uh,
last year or
two
was it 2 years ago? 2 years
two
ago.
years ago we had an All-American. Alex Sampson punched through, was an All-American. And then we had a national qualifier this year, Paul Lichter.
Okay, I remember because I think I sent you a message and I was like,
Yeah,
dude, that was like your first national qualifier as an All American, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool, dude.
uh, yeah. It was pretty unbelievable. He was a special. Alex was a special kid. Um, it was definitely an interesting test as a coach because he was pretty unorthodox. Like everything was a back ankle scramble. Um, like
Gosh
shoot
dang
in,
it.
out the back, he's sliding off, throwing a boot in, like, kind of throw the traditional baseline defense out the window. And, you just had to let him be him. That was how he wanted to do it. And I remember making a joke at him early. I was like, once you take a loss, once you mess up, like it's on, man. We're gonna fix some of this stuff. He didn't get taken down the entire season. We were at the national tournament, and I was like, all right, we just gotta just gotta roll with this. And he punched through, and that was really cool to see him get it done.
It's always like I feel like well, so first of all, I don't think people understand how like difficult it is. Like the region process is so
Yeah,
like different with D2 and D3 than it is in D1, where it's like I could have a good season, and then I don't really need to worry necessarily about my conference. Like I can still get an automatic or a at-large bid.
yeah,
Dude, if you have a bad day at conference, like or your region, like that's it.
no, yeah,
Like you're not gonna go, like because it only takes 16, right? It's 16 man
it's up
bracket.
to 21 now, but then it
Okay.
was 16. So it was, you had six regions, three guys are going, and um, right? Like in, Division 3, there's not as much crossover as Division 1. So it's hard to allocate spots of who deserves more, who deserves less. So some kids, it's just a brutal draw. Like you have um like this year at 149, there were three or four um top 15 kids in the country in one region. 1, 2, and 8, I think, were ranked at the time. And our kid from Fisher, Trevor Bishop, I mean, he was 22-2. He's ranked pretty high in the country, and unfortunately, it just didn't punch through. And it's just a very unforgiving 2 days.
I think it makes when you do get a guy on the podium and punch through the national tournament, I think it does make it a little more special, you know?
Yeah, it's earned. There's
Yeah.
nothing. There's
You
nothing
know you've
given
earned it.
about it.
Like, you know. When you talk about looking ahead, okay, you're
Mhm.
going to Williams, you're going now to Western Massachusetts. It seemed like it was good timing because I think the coach had just left, right?
Yeah,
So what was that process like? I guess obviously you made that decision to be closer to Caitlin's family and be able to kind of put yourself in a good spot to raise your family. But talk about the wrestling kind of part that came with the move
yeah.
a little bit more.
It's all in all, it was just super impressive. Just every inch of the institution. So obviously kind of heard rumors that the job was coming open, and obviously went through the interview process. And when, going out to campus, right? Like Williams is academically is one of the best institutions in the country, right? It's the number one liberal arts school in the United States. Um, it's really well known for just its alumni network, kind of just the academic rigor, but the outcomes that they have after graduation. So you knew it was academically, it was really going to be hard to beat an institution like that. And then the wrestling side of things, and the athletic department was, as you dove in, it just was super impressive. They do this thing called the Directors Cup, in all divisions. So basically total up how you do in every sport. And I think Williams has won 22 of them. They're probably going to win it again this year. They had, I think 17 of their teams were top 10 teams in the country this last year in their respective sports. So to be at a place that academics is obviously as good as it's going to get, but athletics are kind of woven into the fabric of the institution. It was really a combination that's hard to beat. I think a lot of student athletes have to sacrifice one or the other. There's very few schools that you can pursue the highest, you possibly can academically and also pair that with your athletic pursuits. And I think really just the meeting with the team and where they're at as a program, they've really built things up. They finished ninth in the country this year, had 6 national qualifiers, had their first national champ, and it's a pretty good situation to walk into. We returned 4 qualifiers, returning All-American at 184, and who should be the number one kid in the country to start next season.
Dude, what a spot to be in. Because and I think too, it's like, I mean, I think you've kind of earned your way, obviously, to that position. Um, but when you come in, like, are there conversations that you feel like you have to have with guys on the team, just to kind of get, like you said, like the values and your buy-in, and like, do you feel like they're aligned pretty similarly with what is there existing, and then how do you kind of bridge the gap?
Yeah, that was really one of the biggest things in the interview process. I'm really grateful for the administration there. I got to spend a lot of time, not with everybody, but I believe it was about 13 um, of the people on the team, and I was just really blown away with how mature they were throughout this transition process. The genuine excitement that they've shown. And it's not really the most traditional way to start a relationship over Zoom and FaceTime and things like that. So I knew the first thing was really connecting with everybody individually, just trying to learn as much as I can about them and what their goals are, what kind of makes them tick, their interests, and try to do as much of that as I can individually, and then get everybody together as a collective group. So we got our first team Zoom call coming up, and that'll kind of be trying to get everybody on the same page with some of those expectations and values, and but also things like there are some things that are non-negotiables for me. But at the same time, they have a really good thing going, right? So how do you merge that together? And make it as good of a situation as you can be, as it can be for them, kind of moving forward.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because I think, I mean, I had a coach turnover when I was in college. I'm not sure if you did, but it was one of those things where like things were different, and it wasn't necessarily that like, I had Mike Mendoza and Riley
Yeah.
Roscoe were my coaches at, CCB, and then Manny Rivera came in, and then eventually Luke Smith and Chad Hankey came in, and it like, dude, when it was Smith and Rivera and Hankey all together, it was like, dude, this is perfect because it really kind of they were very balanced out. Like
Yeah.
Manny was very good, like relationship wise, and like pretty mild mannered. You can go and talk to him. Smith, like very like logistically like savvy with a lot of things, and then Hankey was like in the trenches with you. Man, I love that guy. I haven't
He was
talked
the
to him in a while.
best.
Have you
He's the
talked to
best,
him
man.
recently?
No, not recently. But I always loved talking to him at J Rob. He just had such a unique perspective. Obviously, wrestling was top tier. So just get the notebook out when he's teaching.
Yeah, and he's a guy too where I think I talked to I've joked with him before, but it's like he has this demeanor sometimes where maybe he's like kind of this big, kind of bulky, kind of jock,
Yeah.
Not saying he looked dumb, but like, dude, when you talk to him, like he's very like I think can talk pretty well and pretty much talk about anything
Yeah.
pretty confidently. But dude, that was like the perfect mix, but that had to change a little bit, because walking past the coach's room with Mendoza. I love Mendoza and I love Orozco, but it's like, dude, sometimes I'd go through the back way just so I didn't have to walk past the coach's office. Because, dude, one time I walked by the door and Orozco was like, "Hey, I heard you were skipping that class," and I was like, "Crap," and I'm like, "Did I?" I'm like, I'm trying to think back to my schedule. Like, what day is he talking about? Like, did that really happen? I'm like, I don't think I did, coach. And he goes, "Yeah, I was just messing with you." And I'm like, damn it. But with Manny is super approachable. Like when you think about like, did you have to experience anything like that, like a coaching change or anything like that?
No,
And
no,
what maybe about that are you thinking about maybe coming in with these guys?
I think ultimately just trying to, I think, you really just want to build as good of a relationship as you can. So, when everyone shows up to school in the fall, that I don't feel like a complete stranger, and just have some idea of, you know, again, like what their interests are outside of wrestling. Like how can, I get to know you and how can I help you as best I can, right? So I think just trying my best to, you know, make myself as available as possible and try to find ways to connect, whether it's on the recruiting trail. There's, been perennially some programs that have, been pipelines to Williams. So right when going out, trying to connect with those guys, whether it's over coffee or grabbing lunch, and just trying to, do whatever I can to make myself as approachable as possible to them. And it's almost been a little bit overwhelming how great they've been of like trying to help me throughout this transition. And I was like, I'm the one that should be helping you guys, right? Like, so it's yeah, I think really the relationship side of things, and then just some of the inner workings, right? There's obviously going to be some traditions and some things that have happened in the past that are really important to them. And it's, hey, how can we keep those? How can we, make this as smooth as possible? And even some ideas that they share that they've done in the past that you're like, man, I wish I thought of that. That's pretty awesome. So I think just trying to, you know, do that to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Well, so when you talk about the recruiting trail, I mean, you have a lot of experience coming from a very serious academic school, and now it's like you're kind of in a similar situation academically. What's your recruiting pool look like?
It's going to be drastically different. Just,
Okay.
obviously like Fisher was a great school, but
Yeah.
you're entering another stratosphere of, kind of academic rigor. So I think, processes are going to have to change. So I think it's really just trying to, go more nationwide, because when you have that rigorous of academic standards, you're limiting your pool if I stay in the Northeast, right? So trying to go nationwide and trying to find, obviously the best wrestlers we can, but also people that are going to be able to, thrive in kind of the academic rigor of Williams, and really add to the fabric of the community. I think one of the things the institution really prides itself on is just how I think really just unique the students are here. They're very involved. They have a lot of interest outside of their sports. They want space to be able to do those. Like our 184 pounder, he might be the number one kid in the country. He's also in a band. He's also a neuroscience major, right? Doing, a lot of them are doing really impressive internships throughout the country. So just, I think that's that part of things, just seeing what adds, kind of the value to the campus and what admissions is looking for. Obviously, that's something I have to learn because I fully get started in a little bit. So I have a little bit of time to kind of figure that out. And then we got to jump head first into finding the best people we can.
What? So, yeah, two questions. What's your 84 pounder's name and what's the band? Like, what is it? Like a punk band? Is it like a jazz band? What kind of
I
band is it?
actually, Jamie Everarts, I actually don't know what kind of music they play. I just saw that he was in like, they had this like basically battle of the bands and he was in it, lead singer.
Oh,
It was pretty cool.
dude, that sounds fun, man. Like, you got
Yeah.
to go to one of his concerts. You got to
Oh,
get a t-shirt.
100%. And especially, like there were a couple guys on the team that, are economics majors. They're doing internships on Wall Street, but then they're also a art history major because they really are interested in that, right? So they're very multifaceted, which I think is, you know, as a coach, I think that's exciting, right? To work with people that are just, as much as we love the wrestling room, right? Having ways to connect with people outside of just, teaching double eggs and single eggs, I think is always makes the experience a little bit better.
And I think from everything that you said, I think it kind of fits you. And you haven't said like your explicit values out loud, but I know you well enough, and I
Yeah.
don't think you maybe changed that much since
No.
we were hanging out. But it seems like you're in an environment where it's not just about being great on the mat; it's about being a great person, and really working hard for that, and kind of trying to be good in everything that you're doing. And I think this is the kind of place where people that are well rounded and
Yeah.
want to be competitive and great and everything, like this seems like the kind of place for you to go.
Yeah, they talk about like the mission of the college, and obviously when you take a job, you do a lot of homework. They talk about educating the whole person, right? And athletics is obviously a part of that. And it's there's a PE requirement. I'm technically I'll be teaching I'm an assistant professor. I'm teaching a PE class, so I'm
Let's
excited.
go.
I might have to hit you up for some help, some lesson plans. But yeah, I think that aspect of things, just having trying to be well rounded and trying to be the best person you can be and trying to approach it holistically. I think that's what athletics is all about. I think that's what Division III athletics are about. Just having a little bit of balance to your life, but also striving to be the best that you can be. So to be at a place that's doing that at the highest level, that's pretty darn exciting.
I think that's another thing too. Like when I was coming out of high school, it was like D1 or bust. Like that's it, in my head. And honestly, being around a lot of the guys at J Rob that were, Division 3 and Division 2,
Yeah.
it's like, dude, what a like a total dumb way of thinking. Like a lot of these guys are good wrestlers, but like they're good people, and obviously the layout of the year is different. Like I know you have a lot more restrictions in terms of how much time you can be in the collegiate wrestling room with your coach. But like
Mhm.
other than that, like these guys work hard. These guys are in shape. These guys love wrestling. I just wish I maybe had a different approach. Like, I mean, my final like three schools were two of them were Division 2, but I wasn't necessarily super excited about that. But it's like I just wish, and I think I'm able to do that now as a coach, encouraging
Yeah.
guys to look at other opportunities. Um, do you feel like in some of the conversations that you've had with recruits, like have they maybe kind of taken that approach? And then how do you maybe from a coach perspective, recruiting perspective, maybe talk a guy into be like, no, like there's a lot more to the picture here.
Yeah, I think a part of it is also knowing when someone's mind is made up, you're not going to change it. So also knowing when to kind of cut your losses and be like, this isn't right. That's fine. Hey, best of luck. Hope you find it. I think just kind of mapping out for them, what do you want your experience to be like, right? Like what, your college wrestling career ends. What do you want to say that experience was like, right? Do you want to, strive to be the best that you can be? And I think sometimes people look at Division 3 and underestimate the level. Watch the national tournament. The level of wrestling it's getting better and better every year. I was really blown away this year in particular, just how good, the best guys in Division 3 are. So, but I think it's that idea of, you know, there's a difference between being on a roster and being a contributor, right? So do you want to
Yeah.
be someone that is, you know, relied on and can possibly be in a leadership role and can possibly you know really make some meaningful contributions from a wrestling standpoint. And I think also just kind of the fabric of it, just the attention that you'll get, right? Like you'll be in a position where our relationship is not tied to money. It's not based on, you know, whether you win or lose. We're going to love you no matter what, and we're going to care about you, and that's not going to change, right? Because you're here because you want to get better, and that's what this relationship is all about. And I think when you look at the landscape of some other levels, it's definitely not the case there. It's more of a transaction.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's a big piece of it. I do like what you said though when it made me think of Noe Garcia, where he was at CSUB and
Yeah.
he maybe could have started his senior year and I love Noe and I don't think that's a knock in any way, but it's like he transferred to Minot and I was like hurt. I took it personally. I was like, dude, you're leaving us. And he goes, I want to wrestle, man. Like I want to wrestle in the duels. Like I want to have an opportunity to compete in the postseason. It's like okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's like okay, with things changing so much, I think on the NCAA level, just across all sports, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like go to a place where you're going to be able to get your competition reps in. Go to a place where you're going to develop, and go to a place where people actually, they really care about you. Don't force a choice to a spot just because of maybe the shiny stuff that's on the outside. And maybe part of that is the fact that there's a one next to the division. It might be, go to a junior college, go to a Division 3 or Division 2, like go to a place where you feel like you're gonna find the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I was someone, I had the dream, right? Like I think a lot of us
Yeah,
did.
all of us do.
And I remember it was a tough pill to swallow in the moment, but I remember talking to some, lower Division 1 schools, and I just remember my dad sat me down and was like, listen, man, like I, you're a really good wrestler, but you're probably not a Division 1 athlete. Like you're trying to force the attention. Why don't you go where you're wanted and go where someone's going to appreciate you and value you? And like I said, in the moment, that wasn't an easy conversation to take in, but I'm incredibly grateful for it now because I look at the relationships I built and the coaches I had, and it really built me into who I am today. And do I have that same experience if I go somewhere else? I don't know. It's hard to say, and especially academically, I think I was someone that needed a small school, needed someone that to know I was going to class and doing what I was supposed to do. And I think that was a big reason why I, made it through college, got my master's, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it worked out for me, big time, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't obviously I was looking at other places, but I think kind of like what you said, being in the right environment, people that are actually going to care about you and want to see you succeed, like outside from wrestling, perspective. When you think about maybe your biggest influences from like people that have coached you, and we're going to maybe just kind of take Jay out of this
Yeah.
equation. But what are some things that maybe that like you grew up with or you found yourself like surrounded by where you're kind of like, all right, this is something that like I want to kind of carry with me now that you're a coach.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I grew up in a big wrestling family. So both my parents are one of seven. Grew up in the same town. All my uncles wrestled. So I had a lot of wrestling influences. I was on the younger sides of the family. So I was really lucky to kind of get thrown into the sport. Um, and I think, my dad was one of my youth coaches. I think he was a big influence on me, and he was kind of ahead of his time in the sense of, you know, everything that we were doing in second, third, fourth, fifth grade was all to get better for the middle school team, right? It wasn't, and then each level, right? It was just to progress and get better. And I think, his big thing was always just, being process oriented, working as hard as you can. And I think a lot of those values were really what stuck with me. And then transitioning into college, my college coach, Bill Racich, was yeah, it's such an influence on me. He's the one who told me to get into coaching and to give it a shot. And he was just unbelievable at um, every other aspect. Like, he was great in the wrestling room, but he was elite at every other aspect. He was part time for 38 years. He's fifth all time in dual meet wins of all divisions. So he just found a way to be creative and be efficient. Um, and I think just the relationships that we had, right? He just had an ability that if you spent 15 minutes in his office, you thought that was the most important 15 minutes of his day. Um, but the art was he made everybody feel that way. Um, and I think just whether it was about wrestling, whether it wasn't, just those moments I think were really impactful in my life. And I remember in one of those, he was like, "Hey, Morrison, you ever thought about coaching? You might be good at it." And from there, I was like, I'm coaching college wrestling. I'm doing it. Like this, I'm not going to PT school. This is it. Um, but it's just, ultimately, I think a lot of those experience. Then Bill Schindel, coaching with him, I think was a really big part at Adrian. He just was just kind of the mastermind CEO of just how to be really good at every aspect of coaching. And he gave me the autonomy to do that, and I think just really prepared me to be a head coach. I mean, obviously you're still trying to get better at it, but I think each step of the way I was really lucky with the people that I had in my life.
Who's the second coach you were talking about?
My college coach.
So do you think that's something, because I know you said like it's something that maybe you kind of felt like everybody felt like those 15 minutes
Yeah.
that they got a chance to spend with him, like everybody felt like it was very important. So I'm going to ask you this, like, do you think he remembers that conversation, like telling you that?
Uh, no, I don't think I remember.
So
He passed away a couple
yeah.
years after I graduated, but I remember like, um, as a reference, I got the job at Adrian. I remember him calling me, and I was like, "You remember like you told me to do this?" And he was like, maybe. Like, I don't know. Like, just one of those, like, he was just like, you might be good at this. And
And it's not disingenuous, dude. Like I think
no.
like a lot of time, and I'm sure you felt this before, or maybe you say something to a kid and you don't like I might have said that, but
Yeah.
like I don't remember saying that. And they're like, no, I remember you told me this, and like I soaked it in. I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna do it. Like I think it just goes back to the power that we kind of have with these kids. And it's like I'm always trying to be aware of it because I don't want to say necessarily the wrong thing. But I think it's just like sometimes as a coach, you got to believe in them before they believe in themselves, and you might see a little spark, and it's like you just got to get that thing lit.
Yeah. And I think it is funny. Like, I definitely understand. Like, I've probably had a dozen of those conversations with my guys at Fisher that they're like, you remember that one story or that one thing. And um, and I think it's a nice reminder as a coach that, like, you know, you got to be on, and it making sure that you're intentional with what you're saying and what you're talking about, and really trying to be genuine. And I think at the end of the day, people want to know that you love them and you care about them. And I think as long as that's at the forefront, good things tend to happen.
It's hard being on all the time, man. And I think kind of tying in what you just said with what you said earlier about Jay and the energy thing, one of the things that I struggled like I mean, I think I'm better, but I still struggle is like not bringing all the energy, like the bad energy home, and
Hmm.
letting it be at my job and like letting it be at, coaching. Cause it is hard because you put in a lot of time and you spend a lot of time with the kids. And, I'm not a parent yet, but like I plan on being a parent. And it's like, that's one of the classic things. It's like you spend more time with, other people's kids than you do ours. And I don't think, my wife Emma would ever say that, but it is kind of like a logical thing. It's like, how do you not kind of bring your work like home?
Yeah.
And that way you can just be present. Like, do you have any like tips or tricks maybe in order to be able to do that?
I think I'm still working on it. I think the nice part is I think my wife's really good at telling me when to shut it down. And when, we've had the same conversation twice, you're not going to change it tonight. Like let's and I think ultimately I think just, maturing in that aspect and just understanding that like right, like there's only certain things that I can control and for me to be my best self, like I also have to take time for myself. And if it's going golfing or going and hanging out, I think in the off season too, that's I think when it's most important to kind of recharge the batteries and
Yeah.
reset and because the season's a grind. And then just making sure you carve out that time. Like I remember it's kind of changed over the years, but just setting like a date night, like hey, like my phone's gonna be off on Wednesday, like taking the wife, we're going out to eat, we're gonna hang out, just take some time for yourself and just understanding that. And I think the more I've been able to kind of take those I guess that time for myself and time to recharge and time to be outside of wrestling, it's allowed me to be better when I have to, be in the room and be present because I've taken that time.
I forgot who told me about the phone thing. Like the phone does turn off, which it's like it's hard to remember that.
Yeah,
Um,
oh, for sure.
And my wife, she just took over a full-time coaching job, gymnastics. So
Oh,
she's
wow.
coaching in town, which is pretty cool. But she's finishing her other job. But I used to do this where like a parent would text me and it'd be like 9:30, and we finished dinner and now we're hanging out, and it's like I'd be texting and like she'd be like, "Hey, put your phone away." I caught her doing that a couple nights ago, and I'm like, "Hey," you know. But I think it's something where how important it is to have, a partner that kind of holds us accountable. Because, if she wasn't there, I mean, we'd be, I don't know where I'd be.
She's yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for her. I think it is funny though. There is like, right, like she knows who we're recruiting. That's good. I remember our national qualifier, Paul Lichter, like I remember we were at dinner and it was one of those where it was like, hey, like, we've been in the grind. Like, I gotta like, you know, try to be present. We're going out to dinner. And I remember he called me, and it was right around like kind of that decision time. And I see the phone ringing, and I was looking at it, and she was like, "Who is it?" And I was like, "Paul Lichter called." She was like, "All right, he's good. You can be quick. Go answer that." Like, but just so having that, I think just she's been great, and I think she'll set me straight on when I'm being a little too much.
I think too, like it's also situational. It's not like you always have to be locked into one way or the other. Like
Yeah.
you get like a text or something, or you maybe look at it and it's like, all right, hey, if this is important, take it. If it's
Right.
not, it's like, or if it's not important to you right now, it's like, all right, I'll deal with it in the morning. Or you just, I listened to somebody and they were like, you're wrestlers. They obviously look at you as a role model, but they also look to how you are as like a husband,
Yeah.
and a father. And it's like I never really like put that together in my brain until I got married. But it's like, dude, that's the truth. They're gonna see how I interact with my wife and how
Mhm.
I spend time with my family and combining that time with my family. And it's like we got to be role models for that too.
Yeah, I think it's that idea that like it's definitely a burden, but like you are the standard, right? So anything you say, like I have to live that to the best of my ability, right? And we're still human and we make mistakes, but it's just I think as a coach, it's nice to have those reminders that right, like you have to be, the standard of what you're talking about.
Yeah. When you think about, I think I've maybe talked with you about it, or maybe with somebody else, but like trying to get some more California guys to maybe look at Division III because
Mhm.
it's not really prevalent here in the West. I mean, there's a couple programs, but it's mainly like a Midwest and East Coast
Yeah.
thing. Do you feel like it's something that is possible? And like, what are some ways maybe that you just kind of think about how do we get these California guys to maybe look outside? Because dude, there's so much talent here, But
Yeah,
one division, it's like, oh, I went 1 and 2 or 2 and 2 at state. It's like I suck. I shouldn't wrestle in college. And it's like, no, dude, that's not the case.
you're really good. Like
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it's that going back to that understanding that like the level is really hard. Like this is a challenge and you have opportunities to wrestle, but also get, you look at a lot of the schools. Like I know NYU's one that they've drawn a lot of, Cali JUCO guys and things like that over the years. Um, just understanding that like academically you can get a world-class education and compete at a really high level coming out to a Williams, to countless other schools in the Division III landscape. I think understanding how good of an education I think will help a lot because you see the trend in other sports. My wife works at the University of Rochester, which is a really high academic institution as an athletic trainer. Her softball team's littered with California, talent. They're all Americans. They're all from California and kind of the West Coast. So I think it's happened in other sports. I think wrestling's just a little bit slower to that curve.
Yeah. I think too, like one thing that I talked with some of our kids and actually my wife, we were looking at possibly going somewhere else out of state. And it was like, she's like, nah, I can't handle the cold. And it's like, all right, fair. But that's like a real thing, man, because you take
Yeah,
somebody that's born and raised in the sunshine, not the sunshine shape, but, in a place where it's constantly nice out. There's
yeah.
really no hard winters. You go to a place that's cold and you're inside all the time and it's like you get that was it manic depression where it's like you're just dark and gloomy and you're wrestling, you're cutting weight. It's like that's
We
that's a
we
real thing.
we call it building character. That's the
My
you know
dogs are barking. Sorry, I'm gonna mute myself. Keep going.
No, you're good, man. I think no, it's definitely it's a transition. I think being honest with that. We've had some guys from more like the southern region, a couple of Virginia guys at Fisher and things like that. So just being transparent, like it's gonna snow in Rochester. Like get used to it. But I think understanding that, right, that's a part of things. But at the end of the day, I think it also makes you appreciate when the weather gets a little bit nicer.
That's what like because I lived in Illinois until I was in seventh grade and we had a kid that committed to go to Wartburg and it was like kind of told him because he gets a little down and I'm like even in Bakersfield he gets a little down during around wrestling time and I'm like dude I know you're gonna go there and it's gonna be tough like make sure you have like a way of dealing with it but yeah I guess they have a kind of a cool setup where like you're basically inside the whole time there's like a tunnel that connects to your dorms and stuff like that but um no, man, I think like it's a really a great opportunity, and I think
Yeah.
that's why it's cool because we get I think a lot of California people that watch this. So
Yeah.
we need to get more
I,
Division III coaches on and talk.
I know, man. It's exciting. Yeah, obviously it's definitely it's a state that Williams has had perennially people on the roster from, right? So it's nice to kind of have that opportunity to try to hopefully continue that pipeline and bring in the best talent that we can.
So I got one more question that we can kind of take it wherever you want, or we can kind of end it there. It's kind of up to you. But this is
Perfect.
one I'm gonna steal. I'm gonna steal this from Mike Mall, who has his own podcast. But he does this thing where like if you could wave a wand and you can change anything about wrestling, if you could change anything about Division III wrestling right now in the state that it's in, what would you change or do differently?
One semester, one semester sport,
Yeah.
I think is what I'd change. I just think the winter season, it is a grind. And I think for, our student athletes are in season for every break that the school gets. Fall break, Thanksgiving, holidays, spring break, we're training for the national tournament. I think that's a lot. And especially when you look at injuries and retention of the sport and also retention of coaches, right? Like something people don't talk about a lot is there's a pretty high burnout rate in college athletics in general, right? You look at all divisions. So I think just shortening up that time, I think it's going to create a better experience for the student athletes, putting them in a position that, they can take that time to prepare for the season, but focus on their academics and some of those times outside of some of those interests outside of wrestling, and then put you in a position that like, hey, we're January to April and it's going to be a little bit more of a sprint, but we're going to be able to put our best product on the mat as much as we can and have a little bit more of a sprint to it than, the current system.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that too, because we most of our high school kids they quit during winter break.
Hmm.
Like every high school program's like this, but it's like, we'll start with a pretty good, we have a pretty good number that comes out and then they just stop showing up. It's just
Yeah.
around Christmas time, they stop showing up. I mean, our committed guys will, our committed part of the
Yeah.
team will be there, but I do. So would you do like, you do like kind of like a preseason around like finals and maybe right after that during that break. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to run right into the season.
Yeah, I think it's like men's volleyball has kind of in college has that kind of season where they start like right after New Year's. They have their couple weeks to train and then they start like end of January and they go until like mid-April, early April. I think that would probably be the best setup for the sport.
Yeah, because I think too, like think about the weather. I mean, we talked about the academic part, but like you said, okay, we're not just like cutting weight in a dungeon when it's cold and dark out all the time. Like you get out of practice and it's sunshine and it's nice and it's like, all right, like I can mentally kind of handle this. Because dude, it gets hard, man. Like you get in the
Yeah.
dog days of December and January, and it's like the season's gonna go for a few more months. And I mean, I love wrestling, but there's always those days where it's like, man, this sucks. Like I don't want to keep doing this like this.
Well, and it's right. Like it'd be, and I think as a coach, right, it'd be nice to be able to just be present with my family on Thanksgiving or whatever it may be, right, or with my in-laws, and it's not, got to get back for practice or I got to do X, Y, and Z. I think it would just be a little bit more beneficial for everybody.
My birthday is right after Thanksgiving, and it was like I think it was 2 years ago. It was like the first time in a while where we didn't have anything like right after Thanksgiving, and it was weird, man. Like it was like, dude, I have like this freedom. Like I don't
Yeah,
have to like any obligations right now. And I think that's kind of in line with the kids. Like think about your core memories from when you started wrestling all the way through when you're done with college. It's like, all right, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, like I'm not like I'm going to bed early, like
yeah,
I'm not gonna overeat, or you think you're not gonna overeat, and then you overeat, and then you come back from break and you're way over. But like that's a big part of growing up is just learn how to deal with that.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So yeah, dude, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me on, and this is awesome. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, it's been a good time, man. Do you got anything else before we cut it?
No, I mean they'll be putting. I'm sure to be up soon. Like contact information for anyone that's interested in Williams. My email and stuff will be on the website. So if anyone has any interest, reach out to me there.
Man, every time I see Ryan, I turn into a 23-year-old youngin again, and man, it's pretty cool just getting a chance to catch up with them. I'm really excited for him. I think all the move that he's making, I know it's hard, but I think it's the best thing for him and his family, and I'm really glad that we got a chance to have this conversation. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Spotify and all the major social media platforms. Also, check out our website at simplemanwrestling.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.